All set? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:03. This is Budget Workshop number 2, talking about next year's school budget. And I'm going to turn things right over to Pete to review the agenda for the night and then have our first guest come up.
Great. Well, this evening, again, the purpose of our meeting tonight is to go over the budget and review, so ask lots of questions, please. So tonight is around our support systems for our schools. So last night we heard from all the schools. Tonight we're going to hear from technology, curriculum, transportation, and operations. And so these are all the things that make our schools run, all critical elements of our school budget. And at the end of that, we'll have a discussion of where we are with the budget based on our workshops and hopefully come to consensus around a recommended budget for next year. So with that, let me have Julio come up and talk about our technology budget.
Good evening. So what I will do is just kind of give a high-level overview of the major changes in the budget. My overall budget is up about $75,000, and I'll explain why in here. But the major factor is, for the past 2 years, our major project last year was the phone system. This year is the continuation of it, phase 2 for the paging and the emergency management. All of those funds came out of capital, so I didn't have to budget for some big item. So that's why you'll see that there's an increase in my budget, but if you look at past years, it's really not an increase. So the first item is the continuation of the phone emergency management paging system. So last summer, we did the entire phone system in-house, and that's been working out great. So we're going to do phase 2 this summer. Steve and Matt Therian, the electrician, have already started mounting the classroom speakers that have the LED displays, clocks, and anything, and speaker as well. They have about 95% of the classrooms done already. We have 60 hallway speakers that Steve and I strategically looked at. Well, he did the strategic placing of the speakers. We're going to get those installed. Those are due to arrive the end of April. So the goal is to get all of those installed prior to June, the end of school year, so that once July comes, we can hit the ground running on programming all of that, because that'll take a lot of time, because it's basically redoing the entire paging system. But we'll have added capabilities with this. So we'll have zone paging. We never had any sort of emergency management. So it will all tie together. So that's kind of a huge project, but it's not a huge project as far as my budget goes, because it comes out of capital. The second piece of that is single wire licenses. So these are basically the licenses for the speakers and all of the hallway speakers and classroom speakers. This is basically the brains behind the operation. This is where you do all the programming, and the way single wire licenses it is you have to buy a speaker license for every single speaker you have in there. I put it in my budget because it doesn't really fit into capital, because it's a yearly fee. We're going to have to pay this fee going forward. Overall, like I said, we'll have about 280 speakers, and it'll be about $4,500 per year. So not huge, but something that I have to put into the budget. The next 2 items focus on cybersecurity. Last year, we added the Ninja One for patching. We added the Sophos for the encryption. As most of you know, cybersecurity is something you can't just get complacent in and just say, oh, we're in a good place, let's just leave everything the way it is. So what we do is we kind of look ahead at cybersecurity insurance requirements, look at possible tools that would help us. So the 2 that we came up with that we really want, and we've already actually started implementing them on trial basis, is Rapid7, which is a SIEM tool. And a SIEM tool is a security information and event management tool. So basically what it has is we have multiple products that do security. We have CrowdStrike, we have Ninja One, we have our network switching, we have our firewall. What this does is it kind of pulls all of the logging and the reporting into a single pane of glass. So no longer do we have to go and look at 4 or 5 different systems to see, oh, tracking down what may be happening. It pulls all of this data in, analyzes it for you, and will say, hey, you know, this, you may want to check this out. There's some unusual activity here. And like I said, based on the latest trust cybersecurity meeting that I went to, they're going to eventually, I don't know if it'll be this year or next year, it will become a cybersecurity requirement. So we're kind of getting ahead of that. The next one is abnormal AI for email security. So we're a Google domain, and Google isn't in the, it's not their top priority to stop spam, phishing, possible attacks. That's not what they're in the business of. So we kind of need an additional layer of security, because the biggest threat when it comes to cybersecurity is the end user and credentials that they may hand over. That ends up being 90% of where the attackers gain their entrance in. So this abnormal AI, what it does is, prior to emails getting to, like, it goes through its basic Google filtering, but then there's a whole nother layer that it goes through. This abnormal AI analyzes it, says, oh, is anything out of whack, will prevent this from getting to the end user, so that this possible phishing or this possible credentials hack doesn't even get to the end user. They don't even know. So we actually started a pilot for this on January 13th. And since January 13th, and this is as of Monday, March 8th or 9th, so far it has stopped 10,925 emails that were possible phishing, spoofing, all of that, before the end user even saw it. So it reduces that, you know, Google will stop 80%, but there's still that 20%. This will kind of get us to 98% of it before it even gets to the end user. So it's a huge benefit. The last one in the district is, it's just a small tool called Gopher for Google Admin. We manage all of our Chromebooks. We have Chromebooks now in grades 1 through 12. So we use Google Admin to manage them. It's not the best in certain situations. So this is a small tool. It's about, I think, $1,300, but it makes the management a lot easier for us. So that kind of takes care of the bigger picture overall. Now we'll get into the individual schools. As you can see, and I'll kind of group the schools together because the rollout's kind of the same. So as you'll see, for the elementary school, middle, and high school, there's Chromebooks for incoming 1st grade, 5th grade, 9th grade. This is the cycle we've had now for 8 or 10 years. And like I said, it helps school committee budgeting. It helps me for budgeting, because if we know the enrollment count, we know how many Chromebooks we have to buy. And we're not coming to you every 4 or 5 years asking for a large pool of money to replace them all at the same time. It's a cycle we've had for 8 or 9 years, and it's worked perfectly, because a student will get a brand new Chromebook in grade 1, keep it for 4 years, which is kind of the life expectancy, keep it for 4 years. Then at the end of that, it becomes a loan or a part. When they get to the middle school level, they enter in 5th grade, get a new Chromebook, keep it for 4 years, and same thing, loan or a part. And then when they enter high school, they get it in 9th grade, keep it for 4 years. So that cycle has worked out really well for us, for budgeting purposes and for keeping, up-to-date and reliable devices in the students' hands. Laptops at the teacher laptops at the elementary school, this is kind of the cycle, and it's in one of the handouts. Every year we kind of focus on a building, so it's always cycled. We do elementary school teachers 1 year, the following year high school teachers, following year admin support staff, following year MPS, and then it's rinse and repeat, same type of thing. And it's just like the student laptops. We're keeping newer devices in the teacher's hands, reliability, and it's kind of budgeted for year by year. We're not asking for these huge increases. So now the other handout is the interactive display. And this kind of goes year by year and what the plan is. So this is kind of where my increase comes from as well, is we haven't had to buy Prometheans for the past 3 years, because we were fortunate enough, I believe in 2022-23, we had a pool of funds where instead of doing a 3-year or 4-year replacement cycle, we were able to do all of the middle school at once. So now we're coming up on that replacement cycle starting for the high school and the elementary school. So as you can see, I kind of have it planned out for the next 6 years, and over that next 6 years, it will replace every Promethean active panel at the high school and the elementary school. So it's just, you know, it's the schedules that we have in place that ensure, you know, reliable hardware and up-to-date hardware, and we're not coming for huge requests, huge monetary requests to replace all this. And it's kind of, you know, Steve and I operate on the same thing. You got to keep your things up. You can't just wait until everything breaks and replace it all at once. And then the only other item on here is branching minds. And Gail, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but this is the MTSS system that they use. And the only reason it's a slight change is we hadn't planned to change this past school year. It kind of got approved in June or July. So it's basically a change in the budget from Performance Matters, which they were using, but they've been using Branching Minds for this year. And the plan is to continue using it. So that's why that is in there. Other than that, there's just kind of the sheet of the other normal things we have to, you know, we normally purchase licensing for certain softwares, supplies, websites, those type of things. Other than that, it's, you know, pretty straightforward budget in my opinion, and addresses the needs that we have. So I'll gladly take any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
So last time we bought laptops, you said that there was a pricing impact.
Correct.
From, I guess, AI, data centers driving up prices. How has that impacted your budget?
Well, we were able to, I came to the school committee in February, and we were able to purchase them. And it's funny because on the tech, there's a tech admins listserv that is basically all the directors in the state. And it actually came out today. Someone was like, have you seen the prices? And they just keep going up and up. And normally what you'd do is you would get a 30-day quote, and the quotes would last. They won't do 30-day quotes. Now it's 10 to 14 days because the prices are changing that much. So based on what we purchased in February, already it's about $50 more than what we paid per device. I have a little bit of extra in this budget for that, you know, if that arises, but I don't think it'll be an issue. And thankfully, like I said, we've already purchased our Chromebooks and our laptops for next school year. So, you know, we were fortunate enough during COVID to kind of be a little forward thinking and see the direction it was going. So instead of waiting till July and purchasing when everybody else is purchasing, we're purchasing in January or February to have it ready for the students, ready for us to work on in the summer, and we're not competing with other districts across the country for the same devices.
So, yeah, I remember February, and I was going to ask, with Dave, so through our forward thinking and this plan being in for years, we were able to predict and react even before, when we first saw, because we knew what was going to happen. We didn't have to do a lump, and we were able to effectively budget.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Yep.
Do you have any idea how far into the future do you think this, tech crunch is going to happen, or is it just kind of?
Honestly, it depends on some of the AI advancements. It depends on if regulations are put on any of the AI. It depends on some of the world happenings right now. It's hard to say. I don't think you'll end up seeing double and triple in overall prices. You'll see increases in components. Like right now, we've talked about in the past, with the AI, it's all memory and hard drives. Those are where the two increases are coming from. I think that will continue, but it's hard to say exactly. But we're in, like you said, we're in a good place because even if there is a drastic increase, we're not buying for 1,000 students. We're buying only for those 3 grade levels and those 40 teachers. So we put ourselves in a good place so that if the prices do eventually come down, we can take advantage of that as well.
All right, thank you for being forward-thinking, and like you said, we're not buying for 1,000, so we can take a hit, but we don't have to take 1,000 hit.
Yep.
And, yeah.
Yep.
Got just a couple comments and a
Sure.
couple questions. So the comments are, thank you for prioritizing the security and the cybersecurity, which I know you always have, but, you know, it's ever-changing, and there's really nothing more important than that, so thank you.
Yep, that's what keeps me up at night.
Well, we appreciate that, you know.
Yeah.
And then also, very helpful, the long-term, the historical planning, because I know you have everything mapped out with the student laptops and the teacher laptops, but to have it in a very succinct doc is super, super helpful, because then we can look at the trends of, it's just all right here, which is super helpful. Like, gee, why do we need so many Promethean boards this year? And then it's like, oh, that's because we didn't buy any
Yep.
for these 3 years, which kind of leads me to, it's not a real important question, because it's back from 22, 23, we had that big purchase at the Pierce School, the 41 boards.
Yep.
Was any of that money COVID or ESSER funds or tech grant, or
I believe some of it was ESSER money. Yeah.
kind of lost track of
Yeah, I
when
know
all
it.
that was, but
Yeah.
I know we had that big purchase, and so I'm going to assume some was grant funded, or I don't know if that was just
Yeah,
out of the
I don't
tech
have the
capital
details
plan.
in front of me, but
Again, it doesn't
I
really
do
matter, 'cause it was that
remember.
long ago, but it leads to the why we're ready,
Yep.
which kind of leads to my final question from me is, same question that I'm going to ask the other folks that are here, same question I asked last night. Is there anything that's not in this current budget that you're holding off on, and then goes into, if there's some small technology surplus at the end of this year? I know a lot of times we'll see you come in May or June to say, okay, we'd over budgeted a little, or things came in under, so what I want to do is buy 2 or 4 of the Promethean boards that are in next year's budget. So the first question is there anything that's not in the budget, or the high priority, if there is a little bit of a surplus, that you're going to be coming to us in May? Like, you might see me back in May asking for,
Yeah, there was one thing, and I think this ties into your ask question, if there's any big, I finally, for the past 3 or 4 years, I never had an ask, and this year I was like, I have an ask. And I had an ask up until 2 weeks ago, because Karen and Pete solved my ask prior to even coming here. So my ask was going to be, last year, we redid the high school computer lab, one of them, because we have a digital media production lab, which we redid, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. The main computer lab we redid this summer, 606, it was great. So we still have the 607 computer lab, which is Chris Herz's labs, which he does sometimes some of the smaller classes, but a lot of the development stuff that requires desktops that are, higher CPU, higher RAM, better graphics cards, those type of things. So we didn't have the full funding for it last year, so what we did was we were going to try to break it up. So at the end, we had a little bit of money left over, so we ended up buying dual monitors and stands for 20 workstations there. We bought new keyboards and new mice, more modern for the students, because our student workers were like, that's something that you can do as a small thing that really would have an impact on the students. So the last thing was the actual computers, because those computers now are 9 years old, going to be 10 years old. So I was like, that would be the perfect ask. But in talking to Pete and Karen, we have funds available to us from the 21st Century Technology and Equipment Fund grant. And we have enough in that to replace all of the desktops. So actually, it's kind of nice that I'm coming. I won't be able to be at next school committee meeting on next Wednesday, but it's a budget item, so Pete was going to explain it for me, but I can explain it for you right now. So you'll see those purchases. It's a purchase for 21 of those desktops to replace those 607 computers. So that would have been my ask, but it kind of got solved 2 weeks prior. So.
and is that completely being funded by the 21st Century Learning Technology Grant?
Correct.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
Karen, did
Excellent.
you put that grant in?
We actually have had that grant for about a year, 6 months or so, and then I was, going through my, 6-month review and saying, wow, these funds are still here. And it was specifically for STEM and computers and things like that, and CTE. So I went to Julio and said, do you need this money? And he said, sure.
And it was like perfect timing, perfect fit, so I hadn't asked for you, but again, that would be the only thing. So if you're able to approve that purchase next week, then that would, we'd be all set up for those 3 computers labs to be completely updated.
Thank you. Do any school committee members, Diane?
I'm just
Yeah?
curious, is the paging and emergency management system, is that going to be all installed in-house?
In-house, so far, like I said, we have about 220 of the classroom speakers, and 95% of those are already installed, and they were installed by Matt Darian, the electrician in Steve's department, along with us helping with the wiring and everything. The hallway speakers will be installed by us, and then we will be doing the programming. So that kind of was that when we went out to bid for that phone paging, it came back a little bit over $1 million. So I think now, Steve and I can sit down and go, but I think we're at like 300 or 350, and we'd be complete at that point, so.
And will any students be able to be involved in the installation?
Our summer workers, so we have 2 summer workers this coming summer. They will help. The only thing we don't let them do is get up on ladders to do some of the physical install, but they'll definitely be a big part of the testing, because in the summer we won't have, so we'll have kids in different rooms with walkie-talkies saying, hey, did this come through fine? What did this look like? So they'll definitely be involved in that.
Excellent. Do any other members have any other questions or comments?
As always, I just like to thank you guys, and if, like, the families and people realize that we have you all in-house to do all this and project and have this, it's such a value to the school system. We appreciate it, really.
Thank you.
We're very fortunate.
Thank you. And thank you for all your support over the years, because, you helped with the funding to set up these schedules, so thank you for all your support, too.
This is one more quick question. I can't remember if this is capital or this is the tech, but the internal, like, Wi-Fi routers and that stuff, I think we just completed, like, installing a bunch of, like, upgraded ones.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, and that was part of E-rate, so we
Yes.
were able to do all of them, and we paid 50% of the cost, and we did all of the physical installation, and we did the programming for it, everything, so there was no external cost to that. And then last year, we had 6 minor dead spots, and last year we purchased those 6, and those went through E-rate as well, so it was only 50%.
Beautiful. Do you need any more of those, or we all?
No, we're in a good place now. We addressed those minor issues last year, and we're in a good place right now.
Perfect. And same with all the internals, like servers and stuff we have?
Yeah, the servers we did, I think, 2 summers ago, so those are all good. The only thing we'll have to kind of consider, and I don't know if any of you know, like VMware, which we use, pricing for that has gone through the roof, but we have perpetual licenses where we get security updates until 2029, so it's not something we have to address right away. The only other thing, and we've discussed this at the tech committee, is our switches. Our switches are probably about 15 years old right now. They're modular HP switches. They have lifetime warranty. We have backup parts. We have backup chassis. We have backup modules. We have backup everything. And we're 10 gig between buildings. So and that's something we will look at in the future, but right now there's no benefit, because we're not taxing out the 10 gig. We're not even touching that right now. So if we were to put all brand new switches in, the end user and us, there would be really no benefit at this point. Like, they wouldn't notice a difference. We wouldn't have any improved performance. The only thing is we'd have something newer, but with the lifetime warranty and with all the spare parts and modules, I just don't think it's not a need at this point, because it's not a bottleneck. It's not causing us any issues at all.
That's fantastic to hear.
Yep.
All right, thank you. It's so nice to have everything so laid out and to have stuff so on top that we do not have to dig ourselves out of holes.
Yeah.
And we can actually take advantage of using our in-house talent and E-rate and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other final comments or questions for technology? All right, well, thank you.
All right, thank
All
you.
right. Are we doing transportation next?
And so, what I might suggest is that we go a little bit out of order. We can save Gail for last, so we can do transportation and operations all together while Steve and Derek and Sam is here as well.
Yep.
And then we can just go right to curriculum after that.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so Steve, whatever you guys want to, however you want to approach it, if you want to talk about transportation or facilities, you guys have the floor, so whatever order you want to do it is fine.
Thank you very much. So on our regular operations budget, we kept it pretty level funded. We looked at all aspects, fuel, whatnot, and I think we were able to keep it pretty close to level funded. Within that, we have some requests for capital purchases of 2 vans and 2 buses. The purpose for the vans are that the mileage that we're running right now is extensive. One's at 169,000 for a gas engine. We're starting to have some transmission problems. And one was the other one, 139,000 additional. Again, the gas engine, inexpensive. We don't owe them anything.
Absolutely, and if you remember last night, we had a conversation. So we are responsible for transporting students literally all over the state. And so, for a variety, we are required by state regulation and laws that, if a student is in need of transportation due to outplacement from DCYF or for other reasons, we do have to transport that student from their placement back to Narragansett. And so that's a lot of miles on our vans. And so one of the things where we have found savings is certainly running our own buses and running our own transportation. It is a cost that is exorbitant for districts across the state. There has been a legislative commission that looked at it. There was a legislative solution that was proposed. It was blown up at the last minute at the legislature last year. I think there is some hope that there will be some regulatory relief around some of these pieces through reorganizing some of the transportation districts, as well as making some adjustments to some of the transportation requirements for which districts are responsible. There's also some proposals around reimbursing districts for some of the transportation costs in the same way that we get reimbursed for excess special education costs, but that, again, hasn't gone through. These are all just proposals at this point. And so Derek works super closely with Melissa, and, often at the very, short notice to arrange transportation literally all over the place. But it adds up on the miles, right? And so unfortunately, while we do have savings, it does mean that we have to replace our equipment. And so that's why those pieces are in there.
These 2 vans that we're talking about, one's a 2017 and one's a 2019. So we're looking at, almost 10 years old anyway. They're Fords. We've gotten our money's worth for sure over the past 10 years.
So additionally, in transportation, requesting 2 full-size buses to start that 10-year process of replacing buses every 10 years. We modified it a little bit, and we're going to spread it out a little further because we're getting some longevity out of the buses because of fleet services and the way they service it and the way the town keeps up on the bus service for us. So we're very appreciative of that. Those are the major transportations. If you want to have any questions about the actual operations budget, I'm happy to answer them, or buses.
So sticking with transportation, can you talk about the size of the vans and what our kind of fleet of vans are used for? So maybe not necessarily these 2 because these are replacement ones, but can you remind us some examples of like where the mini buses and the vans go,
Sure.
And the size of the vans we're purchasing, the passengers?
Sure. Prior to maybe 2017, 2018, we were required by law to use minibuses to go, whether it was even if it was one student across the whole state. Then they came out with pupil transportation vehicles, which is the vans with the school bus sign. It's a different license for the driver, but that's worked out really well for us. But written right in that law, which they've just updated, it used to be that the van or vehicle cannot be manufactured to hold more than 8 passengers, that's including the driver. They tried to get it up to 12, but they had a middle ground. They settled on 10. So we can now buy 10-passenger vehicles, including the driver, which, and we have an array. I mean, there are some vans that are maxed out with, 8 students, say like for Charahoe, North Kingstown. But then there are some, we got a couple of Chevy Equinoxes last year. We had 1 student, it just increased to 2 students last week that are way up in the north end of the state, and it just doesn't make sense running an 8-passenger van. So, we move them around as needed, but it's we have anywhere between 1 student and 7 students being transported around the state. So these 2 that we'd be replacing are both 8-passenger vans, so we can actually upgrade to 10-passenger if we can find them. They're very hard to find. Most of those big vans are 15-passenger, which the state won't allow us to use. It's the same van, just less seats in it. And we're not allowed to take the seats out. They have to be manufactured that way, so we usually end up with around 8-passenger vans.
Thank you.
So staffing is level in transportation. We anticipate, again, roughly the same number of students that we have this year as we're going to have next year. And so while the routes might move around a little bit depending on graduations and that type of thing, we're going to need roughly the same amount of staffing.
And we have adequate staffing, because I remember a few years ago, that was a
Yes.
struggle.
Yep.
So, good, glad to hear that.
Finally.
Finally.
COVID really hurt us with that. There was a lot that went out and never came back after
Oh, yeah.
COVID. So we finally caught up from that.
We weren't the only district I was hearing us having problems
Yeah, it was
staffing
a
that,
huge,
so, yeah.
huge issue.
So I've got a couple questions. I pulled out the capital plan, which we all have in tab 4 there. So just a couple quick questions. So the track resurfacing, are you looking to do the same, like, quality, whatever it is, the thickness or the fill, or the same striping plan or lanes, or?
It's currently in design, and once I have the design finalized, I will share it with you. It's requested the same. There's some changes in line position because of changes in track and the way the track regulations are. They're putting all that new stuff into the plan. It's an overlay on that track because the track condition prior to this winter was excellent, so they felt that the overlay is the appropriate way to go with it. And it's a rejuvenation process, and so it'll be the similar colors or same colors, and some line changes in it.
So we told Steve it had to remain a fast track.
Right,
And
my
so,
job depended on it.
Exactly right. We know a lot of people get really good times on that track, and we want to maintain that level of performance for the track. There have been some changes in the National Federation rules around track and field, mainly involving exchange zones around relays, and so that's what Steve is talking about in terms of changes to the lining.
And we used the same designer that originally designed it, so that we stayed the same.
Yeah, and I think it's whatever the experts recommend there, but there was probably some overstriping of, like, if you do it this way, then you could run the hurdles in this direction or that direction, depending on the wind. But when a Rhode Island Interscholastic League comes up, they're setting up the timer in one spot and the starters in one spot. They're not going to test the wind and then change the finish line and stuff like that. So
Right.
there's probably some things that were overstriped that are not necessary, because for what it's being used for, which is middle and high school, meets?
Correct. So we're not likely to host the Olympics. And so, so I think, the high school level striping, right, which echoes college level striping, I mean, it's the same, I think is really the way to go.
And it's just really, it's the quality of the surface, because it's a pretty, obviously a high quality.
It's gonna
With the
be,
surface, you don't want to replace that with a much thinner, cheaper, you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
the,
so it's gonna be this, it's gonna be the same surface material. The surface will be thicker because it's an overlay, but I've been assured that it's not gonna affect anything, except, the reconditioning look of the track.
and are you hoping to do that this summer?
I am hoping to do that this summer, yes.
All right. My next,
The snow set us back about a month on the evaluation process, so.
well, and that's my next question is, can you talk to us? Obviously, you probably started working on next year's capital back in December, and then it's always a, 5-8-year plan, but with this very unexpected storm, do you have some serious concerns about, unexpected paving or sidewalk or things being way over budget with plowing or, I don't know, like,
Yeah, I do. The extremely cold temperatures this year have done some havoc on the paving and the asphalt, and stuff heaving and cracks in the asphalt. And the evaluation I've been working on for the last week or so, after the snow cleared, was noticing and inspecting where all those problems are. And there's a myriad of solutions that I'm trying to evaluate what's going to be the most cost-effective for us at this point, whether we crack, fill, and seal them, or whether we actually have to replace some asphalt. I've been in contact with the insurance company. They do not cover weather-related heaving. I have a loading dock that heaved, and it's very difficult to get stuff off trucks with a fork truck. So we're working through those problems right now. A lot of that's probably going to be just repaired by us at this point, but the asphalt is a concern. The other concern is we've worked a 2006 plow truck pretty much to death at this point. So those are concerns. We've been, I think we're trying to get through it with it. But again, it's not something that's in this budget. But on a very unexpected winter and a very difficult winter on equipment and property.
so probably a dumb question, but the plow trucks that we have are used for other purposes year-round, or?
Yeah, so the truck that's of question is our only dump truck. So it's a heavier duty truck. It was the only truck to move snow in after 8 o'clock in the morning on the Monday. The smaller trucks it was just overwhelmed. So it's a heavier duty truck, and I have concerns, but.
But is that a truck that is
It's
used
for-
year-round for,
It's used for fields, it's used
Yeah.
for moving loom, moving stone, all the stuff we do to maintain grounds. It's used every single day.
so going back to the sidewalks and the pavement and stuff, so sometimes, like proactively, we see a line item for, sidewalks and parking lot replacement, but is that, so I know you're trying to determine what the need is, but is there a certain thing, like, I know you picked out like some highlights of what's in the capital plan, but is there, we're not able to see, like, in next year's budget, the need to do that, or would that come out of this year's
Now,
budget, kind of the
This
same?
was after this budget was created.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, most of this was in the last week and a half since that storm. because of snow cover and ice cover on, on the areas, they were, you know, you could see some cracking, but not the heaving like we're seeing now. As it's thawing out, it's starting to lift stuff, and so I don't think we'll see the full effect of it for another 2 or 3 weeks as stuff warms up.
So what happens, Tammy, is, you know, typically, and I really appreciate you raising the issues from the storms. You know, if necessary, we can call the building committee back together and do a revision and kind of reallocate budgeted funds if there's a need, for example, to push off a different project and use that funding for a repair of, you know, asphalt or things that are necessary for the smooth operations of schools. And so I think the important piece for this conversation is having the resource available, right? And, you know, we certainly have it allocated to intended projects. We can do a revision to the plan if there's, you know, a need to do so in order for schools to run, you know, smoothly and the way that we need them. We haven't had to do that in the past. And also remember that our process is that the school building committee and the capital committee meet every year and make revisions to this plan. So Steve may be able to patch things, right, to get through a little bit of time, but next year we may look at that and say, well, you know what, we might need to add a plow truck to it. And so even if it's not there now, we can add things for the next budget year at that meeting and make revisions to our long-term plan.
Is there a possibility, as we get toward the end of our 25-26 capital, that some projects or expenses came in under, and then you might be able to come to us at the end of this year and say, hey, you know, we thought that this very large HVAC project was going to cost this much money, and it only came in at this, and so we'd actually like to take that surplus and then get that badly needed plow truck or sidewalk repairs or something?
We actually have what we call a capital reserve fund too. So every year that we budget these projects, a lot of times we do have surpluses, and we keep it in what we call a capital reserve. And in addition, we also have housing aid that we get. And this year, our housing aid was over $700,000. So we actually do have some money in reserves that we could possibly use for items such as a plow truck.
Other questions for the committee before I ask my final question? But anyone else first?
I'm happy to see the gym dividers on here. I've heard from the community that we can't use the space the way we used to use the space because the curtains.
So the gym dividers are actually curtains. It was a very long battle to get to curtains, but the savings is incredible using a curtain.
Well, it'll restore the ability to use the space in the way it was intended to be used.
Especially with the numbers that we have in the gyms, the curtains make the most sense.
Perfect.
They do. Yes, and again, with the proactive approach, and I don't know if you've named your plow, your dump truck, you know, it always helps to make them work better, but other than that, the historic blizzard, that's unprecedented. Like, we appreciate all the proactive
I have an
work you
incredible
guys have
crew
done.
that works hard, and the equipment worked hard this time.
Yes.
We can put together a naming committee.
So I
We'll
guess
put
I got
together a naming committee.
2 short questions. I remember being on the capital committee that the buses came in a lot higher than they usually do. Yeah.
Substantially higher. So our original, when we started, our original purchase of international 77-passenger bus was $77,000. Is currently $140,000 for the same bus.
So
for the
almost
same
double.
bus.
And that's like in less than what? like
Same
those-
engine,
yeah.
same everything,
Yeah.
same bus.
9
Wow.
years ago.
9 years ago?
Yep.
Wow.
So, and you look at vans, transportation vans, the same, they were in the 30s, 32, 34, they're 60. If you can find the ones you need.
Yeah. And I trust you will find the best deal you can get. You've found us great deals in the past. Okay, so this actually even makes the budget look even better with those rapid increases in key components, so, yeah.
So, did you have a question? Diane?
Well, I did on the track resurfacing. Has the resurfacing been done pretty much when you expected it, or when the vendor told you it would be needed?
It was supposed to be in the 10-year mark, and we're at the 10-year mark now.
So it's pretty much right on schedule?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my final question is, there were some capital requests that weren't a dire need, but would certainly, enhance the facilities and long-term assets there. So my question, I don't know if this is going to come at the end with the funding, Pete, or if it's appropriate to ask now, like as simple as, there was an ask about shelving for the library. Like, are you going to circle back to that at the end, or is this a time to discuss? Like, is that something that?
Now is terrific.
Okay.
So we did get three requests from the schools, one being shelving for the library, one being some work on landscaping at Pierce School, and one being supporting the new playground at Pierce School. So Karen and I looked at our capital expenditures from this year, and we do believe that all of those can fit in with the savings that we've had from the work of Steve and his crew. So he's done an amazing job. So Steve and Julio, the installation of those, of the phone system by doing it on our own was a significant savings from our original estimate. And a few others have come in below budget. And so what I would recommend to you is that we take some of those savings, and within the current fiscal year, you could support the purchase of the bookshelves and support the work on the playground, right? So, both of those things. So you would expect to see those coming before the committee as expenditures this spring. And we do believe that some of the work on the landscaping with working with the FFA and perhaps giving some resources either from the current budget or into the next budget to kind of help beautify that space out in front of Pier, I think we can support that as well without having to add to the proposed budget.
Well, it's very exciting. So the logistics behind the playground at the elementary school, would that be something, once we're able to figure out what we can contribute, we already know what the fundraising amount is, there's some active fundraisers happening, would we be seeing, toward the end of this fiscal year, summer, when the elementary school figures out with you guys what you're actually going to do, would we see the school committee approving a purchase of, like blank, I'm making this up, like $86,000, and we know the funding source would come from, they've already raised $59,000 plus, like, is that how we'll see if they landed on the $86,000 or the $106,000? We'll see it because once that's all vetted, it'll come to us as a purchase, and then you and Karen can explain their fundraising to date. They were at $59,000 back in March, but then they raised another $10,000. So the fundraising from the parents, from the PTO, from the Lions Club, from URI, from all these charitable places that donated is this amount, and then we're using school department capital funds to close the rest?
Correct, and so that will go through school committee, and so you will see that, and I am certain Lisa will keep us updated about it as we go forward, and so I think we can all look forward to, kind of seeing something in place, for the next school year.
That would be great, depending on the lead time, because we may be ready with the funding, and then it may be like, oh, that equipment thing has a 4-month lead time on it, or back order.
It's 16 to 22 weeks on the lead time on playground equipment right now.
Well, and I wonder, as you have those discussions about if there's anything that can be phased. So like if they know that they were able to raise 65,000, we were able to add 20, so like, okay, there's 86,000 that could be approved, the purchase order to go in to get that 4-month lead time, and then could there be a second phase, like if the PTO is like, okay, we were able to accomplish the goal of this, But, if there were some fundraisers that still happened at the end of the year, okay, well, that's that last other supplemental piece, like, is there a possibility of phasing it where, because like last night, the elementary principal brought, just kind of showed us an example of like option one, option two. Would we be able to support the funding for option one?
Yeah, I believe that, see, I haven't been involved in that conversation because it was PTO-based. So I have not seen the final plan on it. But my understanding is that it was phased anyway. It was set up to be built in sections, the way they did it. But without seeing what the proposal is, I can't honestly answer that.
And I would love to hear from the rest of the committee, but I definitely would extend my full support to whatever our small contribution could be from the capital budget to add to the significant amount of fundraising that's taken place. So there's something that is approved with a purchase order, with the goal of it going into place next year. And again, it's, that's, so I don't know, I'd like to hear from the rest of the committee
I
about.
completely agree, and I do believe they said it was phase 1 and 2.
Right.
So if we start it with phase 1, hopefully for the beginning of next year, that would be great, and then phase 2 whenever, and I think they would have the money by then. Absolutely, I would completely agree with that.
No, I just want to echo my agreement too. Like, one of the things we focused on has always been health and safety. And like, having kids be active on a place they want to play in is always a focus. So I think if the PTO has done such lifting, we can join them a bit, so.
And if, I think last night they said that they had already raised around $59,000, but it's a lot of community organizations that have partnered with that. And if we, as a school committee, are allocating some capital funds, a finite amount to add to that, that can then help the PTO with their final fundraising push. Like, once they sit down, once you talk and say, okay, you've raised this much money, the school committee is willing to contribute this much money, that'll cover phase 1, that may really give them the boost they need in their final couple months of this school year to be like, yes, we're at now, this much, and, if we can get a little bit more fundraising, then we can get phase 1 and phase 2 covered or whatever.
If you'd like, I'd be happy to work with the principal, and there may be an option to purchase the equipment with the money they have up front and get it ordered.
I would love for you to talk with the principal and really try to help them with the timeline and make sure they really understand the lead time is, it comes before a school committee, and then it's the purchase order, and then it's the whole, if it's a 4-month back order, and the timing of who's going to install it, and you can't install a playground in February with
No.
3 feet of snow.
So I'm sure Principal Wilson would love to sit down with me tomorrow and talk about this. You're welcome, Lisa.
And with that, it really is a sincere question about, I know you and the building committee are very thoughtful and strategic about really trying to prioritize health and safety, protecting the assets. You can't, it's boring when it's HVAC and
It's boring to
windows and
everybody
that, but
else.
you
I
have
love
to,
that
right?
stuff.
But I'm just saying, it's when we can see a new computer lab and new furniture at the library and a
understand.
curtain in the gym so they can really help the PE kids, and a playground, when you can see that stuff, it's exciting. It's not exciting to do resurface parking lots and sidewalks and HVAC, but you have to.
Right.
So my question is, it sounds like there's a lot of things that you've got to try to triage and prioritize with the blizzard, but, so I guess you probably, if I say, hey, is there anything like I've asked everyone else, that something that you would really need, like I heard, kind of a dire need for a plow truck. You're going to look at the sidewalks and,
The dump truck and the parking area would be my two requests. But a truck, I can kind of guess how much it would be, but the parking area, until I get a full evaluation on it. And it's at all three schools, it's not just happening at one school, so.
it's, it's fair, and many of us and our neighbors, we saw like, hey, my road didn't get plowed for a couple days, and then when the truck came, it got stuck in the snow on a lot of the town roads and many of the
I was
towns.
in
You
one
saw
of those
that.
trucks many times.
We saw that all over the news, all over the state, that people waited 3 days, then finally the little truck came and it got stuck. So whatever you need to do, we're happy to support, so.
I appreciate that, and I always appreciate your support. My crew works very hard
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
good work and do what's right.
Well, and we appreciate that. I think we always forget to, it's a lot of thank yous, but this was just unprecedented. I can't imagine the around-the-clock work
I don't wanna
that
do it
people were
again.
doing. Well, no, there's no more snow, so,
Knock on some wood,
yeah.
please.
That's why we have to get you a new plow truck to ensure it doesn't happen again.
That's right. Any other questions from the school committee about transportation, facilities, grounds, capital, anything?
No, I'll echo what you just said, Tammy. We really appreciate the work that you do, and the fact that our operations is boring is fantastic. Boring is good.
Yeah, I guess there's a small one. To echo the boring point, is I appreciate you being proactive with the vans. Like, even though in theory we could get some time out of them, it's better to have kids have reliable transportation, in my opinion. So I'm happy you're being proactive in replacing older parts of our fleet. So thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So on to curriculum? Okay.
Last but not least, so Gail with curriculum.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I have the privilege of working with not only Pete, but the administrators and the coaches and the teachers on teaching and learning in our district, which is my sweet spot. And we have been doing some incredible work. We are really moving, and I wanted to make sure that all the people who are involved in that know that their efforts have not gone unnoticed. We've really been doing a lot of work. The next couple of slides, I started out just kind of highlighting some of the work that our department does that, I've talked about in the last couple of years. I'm not going to go through each one with you, but we have some new things that we started this year that I wanted to highlight. One is we have a new system, as Julio mentioned, called Branching Minds. And when we reorganized some positions, I became the MTS coordinator for the district, and Jill and the interventionists had last year decided to move to Branching Minds as our kind of like MTSS data repository. So this year was all about, with Julio's help and Lori Noonan's help as well, implementing this in our schools, and there's a lot of back work that goes into that. But what the system does for us is we are able to upload nightly attendance reports, behavioral reports, whenever there's any state testing or IXL or iReady testing, so that when we look at a student at an MTSS meeting, we can pull up that student, and all in one spot, it will tell you if they're absent, how many behavioral incidences they have, what their scores are, and so on, and we get that full picture. And we're also able to customize it for any assessments that we do within the classroom that we want as one of our data points. So that has been a lot of work, but really exciting work, and the interventionists have have embraced it. They're the only ones who use it right now, the interventionists and myself and the principals. But next year, we're going to start training the teachers so at least they know how to get on it and to look at it, because it's really a powerful piece, not only when you're in an MTSS meeting, but if you're meeting with a parent, or you're meeting with your teammates, to have all that data in one place. So that's something new we brought on this year. We also have a new partnership with the University of Rhode Island for student teachers. So Pete and I met with the university last year, where they approached us about being a full partner. And what that means is we go to meetings with them to talk about what we're looking for in new teachers, so that they make sure that their student teachers are getting those kind of teaching experiences in their classrooms at URI. And we have committed to accepting URI students here. We have quite a few student teachers this year. Most of them this year in the high school, but we do have a few at the peer school and at NES. And the way they organize it is different than when you and I, Tammy, student taught. They are there for the whole year. So they start out with just a couple days a month, then it goes on to a couple days a week, and then full throttle. So we really do have them from the fall until May, which is exciting, because they get to build relationships with the students and really see how a full year goes. So that has been also something new. And then this year, just starting this week actually, Ms. CJ Tadino and I have started up again the Health and Wellness Committee. And we are in the process of looking at our policy. We're going to be updating that, so I'll be in touch with you, Diane, and as well as CJ, and doing some surveys by school with a tool that we have to see where we are by school in areas of health and wellness, like the school lunch program and PE classes and health classes and so on. And this committee has many stakeholders, not only administrators, teachers, school nurses, community members, parents. We're trying to get a couple high school students on it. So it's kind of been nice to bring that back and do some work in health and wellness, as we have done for years. So I added that to the slides that you're looking at now, along with some of the other usual curriculum work that we do. We definitely are always looking at our data and using our data to drive our instruction. We are always making sure we're in compliance with any professional development that our teachers need through the state. And we are always piloting new materials to make sure that whatever we have is the best that's out there. It's quite a process, but in the end, we know that we've done our due diligence. So as far as the budget, there's really not a lot of new things in my budget. As far as any licenses that we have for new materials, I know last night the principals probably talked about at the elementary school adopting Open SciEd for science materials. So there's going to be an initial cost for that, but the good news is then we will own the kits. Of course, you're going to have to supply them, but we'll own the kits. So even though that initial cost might be a little bit more, it won't be as much per year. At the high school, we are going to be going for the new version of our ELA curriculum through Savvis. So there is a cost for that, of course, but we've had it, believe it or not, I think 5 or 6 years already, and there's been some new iterations, and we really need to move to the new one because it has a lot of pieces that the older one doesn't have. So that is not in my budget, but I have been in collaboration with the principals about those materials, and they're in their individual budgets. So as far as my budget, it's pretty much professional development for the curriculum team. We want them to be on the cutting edge for building thinking classrooms, AI. The coaches and I and Pete are going to the National BTC Conference in lovely New Haven, Connecticut this summer. We only go to the best places. So, there's a cost to that, but we want our coaches who really are working elbow to elbow with the teachers to to be on the cutting edge of that. The author of Building Thinking Classroom is going to be at that conference. Also, my budget has curriculum books or book discussions that we have, especially when we meet with new teachers for new teacher orientation. We have them read chapters of Building Thinking Classrooms for that new teacher orientation, and then we talk about it at new teacher orientation. We have them read chapters from Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, and then we talk about that during teacher orientation. So those books are purchased in my budget. And finally, funds for outside presenters that we have. We are in collaboration right now with Partners for Educational Leadership that does professional development for us, with Annenberg at Brown University. So I have budget lines for those vendors to work with us. And finally, for Curriculum Academy, if you remember, every year we have positions that we put out to the staff if they're interested in doing curriculum work, and they get a stipend for coming in the summer and doing that work. It's been really well received. It's been going on since Pete came here, so I don't know, is that 10 years, 9 years? So my stipend monies are in there as well. A lot of the other work that we do, we get some great grants, you know, so we're doing some tutoring right now that wasn't even on our docket, but RIDE had a grant. We applied for it, we got it, so we are offering some math tutoring right now at the middle and high school. So whenever those grants come out, you know, it's like a little game for me. We apply for them, see if we get them, and then we can offer something that maybe we didn't plan on, but it's either good for students or good for teachers. Any questions?
Are you writing the grants still?
I do write a lot of grants.
I know
Yeah.
you do.
I love it. It's amazing the money that's out there sometimes, and sometimes when these grants come out, they come out at really inappropriate times of the year. So a lot of people don't apply for them sometimes, so you have a better chance of getting them. So all you can do is try. It takes a couple hours of your time, and you might get it, right? So.
Is it safe to assume that everything that you really need is included? There isn't anything extra that would be beneficial, or like, do you feel pretty good about?
I feel really good. I think the
Okay.
only thing I would say is, you know, I really hope we can continue, you know, to keep the coaches at where they are. They do a lot of that background work that you might not see it, but it's there. One project that we started last year, Pete and I and the coaches worked together on revising our curriculum documents. So if you go on the curriculum website, which I hope you do because it's awesome, but we have these public-facing documents that we are revising right now, because what we have found is the curriculum documents we had in the past that were public-facing were probably a little too much information for the public, but not enough information for a new teacher, a teacher taking over for a maternity leave or a sick leave, or a teacher wanting to see what was done at the grade level before. So Pete and I and the coaches revised, and now we have public-facing documents that are for, you know, parents to look at, people who want to move into the community, stakeholders like yourselves, that pretty much, you know, tell you what we're teaching in each course. But then we're going to have teacher documents that are going to be only available to the teachers on a district drive, and those are live documents. So it will have what they're teaching, but they're going to be able to add live links, like, oh, this is a Building Thinking Classrooms task that I used. It'll be able to click there. So if they're on a leave or there's a new teacher coming in, everything is going to be there for them. They'll keep adding to it. So our goal is to try to get those public-facing docs almost done by the end of this year, but finish them by next year for sure. And then we're gradually adding in those teacher docs as well.
So Gail's done an incredible job. Remember that we have new curricula by state mandate in every single subject area, right? K-12. And so there has been a ton of work that's gone into that. You know, the other piece, so first of all, Gail's doing an amazing job, right? And, the work that Gail does with the coaches. Research study after study shows that investing in instructional coaching is hands down by standard deviations the most effective form of professional learning. And so, a lot of the outcomes that we are seeing that you heard the principals talk about last night is a direct result not only of the hard work of our teachers who are doing an incredible job, but our investment in instructional coaching, where our coaches are working deeply with our teachers in collaboration to really master their craft and think about how students learn and how we design curriculum along with that. And it's also around the support of the committee to have collaborative time for the teachers. And so our schedules are designed in such a way where teachers get to meet together if they're teaching a common grade level or common course, many times a week. And so what that allows us to do is to embed professional learning into the regular school day where they're working on the actual problems of practice that are in front of them in terms of how are we teaching math, how are we teaching ELA, what does this open SciEd lesson need to look like. And so all of those things together, they require resources. That's part of what we're doing with this budget, but thoughtfully applying those resources into the expertise of our teachers so that they can develop meaningful, thoughtful, and rigorous lessons going forward is part of the outcome of that investment of resources. And we are seeing the outcomes, as you heard Connor talk about last night, having that many students in AP classes is a K-12 effort. It doesn't just magically turn on in 9th grade, right? The foundation for that rigorous learning has been laid, all the way through from pre-K on, and students are then ready for that type of learning. So that's, the capstone and the outcome, and should be celebrated at our high school, but it should be celebrated as a pre-K-12 effort.
Any other final questions for Gail? Well, thank you very much for all of your work. We appreciate
Thank
that.
you. That's awesome.
All right, we're going to turn things over to Pete for the last part of the meeting.
Great. So I'm just gonna hand these down to you. So as we've gone through the workshop, I appreciate the many thoughtful questions that all of you have had as we go forward. So there are two things I want to talk about with you. So one, in your binders, you have a printout of our fund balance, right? And one of the things I want to highlight with you is that we are applying our full fund balance to next year's budget. So, by agreement with the town council, we do hold a little bit back for emergencies, but other than that, the full fund balance is being split between capital and operating for next year. So some of it is for operating for this year, some of it is operating for next year, and some of it goes to capital. So that full fund balance is being applied. We're not holding any of that back. Two, if you notice, overall, when you really look at all our different departments, our overall increase is less than 3%. It's 2.4%. And so, that is a very reasonable overall increase. If you think that, our salaries are going up, which is 80% of our budget, by 3%, we are finding savings in other areas for our overall budget to only go up 2.4%. So if you turn the page, right, and the important thing is how will our budget be funded, right? So the proposed budget, so we do ask of the town even less than our overall increase, right? So we're asking the town for their allocation to increase by 2.3%, which again is very reasonable. Overall, and I'll again highlight, the schools are only 39% of the overall town budget. So when you look at surrounding communities, that is in the, high 50s, 60s, even 70% of the overall town budget. So in Narragansett, it's only 39%. Second of all, we did get a slight increase in our state aid. And I talked about that last night a little bit with an increase of the allocation to high-cost special ed. That did increase our state aid slightly. And it didn't go down. Our student numbers are roughly equivalent to what we had last year. Overall, as I kind of said, we had our fund balance, right, is going right into our operating costs for next year. And so overall, right, the proposed budget is 37,996,656, which is a 2.42% increase over last year. And so because we didn't make any significant adjustments through the workshop process, I would recommend that budget to you again, and you'll have the opportunity to vote on that at our upcoming regular school committee meeting.
Does anyone have any questions at all for Pete or for Karen right now?
No, I mean, I don't have any questions, but, with the cost of, all of our equipment going up, all of our outside services going up, I mean, I think this is pretty incredible to be able to keep it at such a modest level.
And I think, Peter, to emphasize that point, you raise a great statistic with the fact we're only 39% of the town budget, which is among the lower in the state. It's kind of very impressive. And it shows really a commitment by all of us here to be responsible and for many years. So I just want to thank you again for that.
And I would agree with both of you. I think the very realistic, modest increase is very reasonable. It's very fair, because again, it's so many things went up with, health insurance, with benefits, with everything. And it's so important to continue to protect the capital assets, because when other costs go up, whether it's healthcare or other things, and if you don't continue that investment in capital, then you end up where we were in this town, 20, 25 years ago, where things just fell apart, and then there was a big bond, and it really impacted teaching and learning and students. So I'm really happy to support this budget next week, and really appreciate everyone's very thoughtful and hard work, and I think it's extremely reasonable, and look forward to kind of passing this next week and moving it on to the town to consider.
I agree. It was thought out. Everybody worked really hard, especially doing things in-house, to be able to account for unforeseen things that came up, to be able to handle it, to not increase the budget elsewhere. And with the added costs in the world and extra costs to come out this percentage, it's very good.
And at the same time, expanding CTE programs.
Well, exactly.
And expanding, the SAT classes and the AP courses and just everything that we're doing while we're
And
trying to control expenses too.
Losing money from funding and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Justin?
Yeah, and I think I want to just continue, in an era where it seems a lot of school districts are just either desperately trying to fill holes or making tough choices on stuff to cut, we are not needing to make any of that. We are making progress. And you see in our test scores, you see in our kids taking opportunities that are not presented in other districts. And I think it's just been a great team effort that we're really seeing the fruits of that labor. So, thank you.
And one thing I'll remind the committee of, right, is that, we are over 20% free and reduced lunch. And so we have a lot of students that require extra support. We do a great job with that. Melissa and her team, for students who have specialized learning needs, do a lot of great work with those students. We're at about 18%, I think, for special ed, 17, around 17% for special education. And so again, those are resource-intensive student populations, right? So when you have a student who, requires more resources because they don't have resources at home, or if you have a student with a specialized learning need, those do require more resources. And so we have found ways to do that within, I think, a reasonable budget framework, and have had pretty positive outcomes from students that continue to grow. One of the things that we're proudest of, it's not just, we are scoring really well, but also our growth numbers continue to increase. And so, you know, there are other communities whose student population, you know, it is at a free and reduced rate, you know, of 5 or 4 or 6 or 7. And, you know, we are really kind of in that comparison group because of our achievement. And I think that's a really important thing to remember because, you know, in many ways, the hard work of our teachers, of our administrators have allowed us to kind of grow beyond expectation. And I think that's what we want, that we shouldn't have lower expectations for students and that we should have the highest of expectations, and we continue to press on that.
Thank you. Any other final comments or questions?
Sorry, this might be a bit derailing. I remember coming off of COVID, we saw what we thought was more of an artificial decline in our free or reduced lunches, just from people not getting the paperwork because it wasn't needed. Is that still the case, do you think, or do we kind of like gotten more of an accurate, or is this even an undercut to say 20%?
So 20 is probably a little bit low. The state has moved to a different way of calculating it, so they do more direct certification now. And so while we still have families that probably don't apply that would qualify, you know, we're probably getting a more accurate number than we've gotten in the past.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter.
All right, and there's no one here for public comment, so is there a motion to adjourn at 7:25?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank